Such heart, such desire, and against the former world number.
What if the scoreboard is lying to you? Picture this. A player gets blitzed by 14 aces in a single match. Her opponent barely musters 4. By every normal measure, that match is over before it starts. But it wasn't, because the player standing on the wrong side of that stat line walked off the court a winner. Her name is Alex Eala. And that wasn't even the wildest part of her week. Less than a day later, she stepped back on court against a different opponent, one who cracked 25 clean winners. Alex, just 10. 2 matches, 2 brutal stat sheets, 2 losses on paper. Except paper doesn't win tennis matches. Players do. And in Washington, Alex Eala didn't just win twice. She revealed something that should worry every single player left on the WTA tour. Because a talented Alex Eala is a nice story. A composed, unshakable Alex Eala? That's a completely different problem for everyone else in the draw. The label that followed her everywhere for a long time, there was one sentence attached to Alex Eala's name, over and over. So much talent. Nobody ever doubted that part. She could rattle elite opponents. She could produce jaw-dropping shots out of nowhere. She could make an entire arena hold its breath. But right behind that praise came the follow-up question, the one that never quite went away. Can she do this when things aren't going her way? Can she hang on when the timing isn't there, when the crowd senses blood, when the momentum flips against her? That question chased her from tournament to tournament. Some weeks, she'd produce an upset nobody saw coming. Other weeks, she'd be gone early, and the talent alone couldn't explain why. The gift was never in question. The consistency was. And that gap, between brilliant sometimes and dangerous every time, is exactly what separates a crowd pleaser from a genuine title threat. Because here's the truth about professional tennis, nobody wins a career on their best day alone. Everybody ranked in the top 100 can look untouchable for one afternoon. What actually builds a champion is what happens on the uncomfortable days, when the serve disappears, when the forehand keeps landing wide, when your own confidence starts leaking out point by point. Washington may be the week we look back on and say, that's when it clicked for her. The stat nobody talks about before we get into the matches. Here's something worth understanding. Most fans watch tennis through a narrow lens: aces, winners, highlight reel putaways, loud numbers, easy to spot, easy to post online. Coaches watch something else entirely: decision making. Tennis, at the highest level, isn't always won by the player swinging hardest. It's frequently won by the player choosing the smarter shot in the moment that matters, knowing when to go for it, when to sit back, when to simply keep the ball in play instead of forcing a miracle. That's the skill that turns exciting into dependable. And that's the exact quality Alex Eala appears to be sharpening right now. One title still missing at just 21, Alex Eala has already rewritten what Philippine tennis history looks like. She's the country's highest-ranked woman ever. She trained inside one of the sport's most respected academies. She's beaten Grand Slam champions. She's proven repeatedly that she belongs on the tour's biggest courts. Even her run to the second week of a major told the world she wasn't just another gifted junior anymore. She was a legitimate threat. But one line on her resume stayed blank: no WTA Tour title. Not yet. Which is exactly why a week like this one matters so much. Every hard-fought win adds up. Every ugly, scrappy victory counts just as much as a flashy one, arguably more. Washington was about to test that directly. Round 1. The Olympic champion. Her opponent to open the tournament wasn't just anybody. Zhengqinwen, Olympic gold medalist, former world number 4. One of the biggest, heaviest servers currently playing women's tennis. On paper, this was a nightmare matchup. Hard courts reward power serving, and Zheng has one of the most fearsome deliveries on tour. That advantage showed up immediately. Ace after ace flew past Alex untouched. By the finish, the numbers were almost embarrassing: 14 aces for Zheng, only 4 for Eala. Under normal circumstances, that gap alone decides a match. Every free point from a serve saves energy, kills pressure, and shortens the workload. When one player is handing over that many freebies, the other typically spends the entire match just trying to stay upright. That's precisely how it started. Zheng took the first set comfortably, dictating from the baseline, looking completely at ease. Then it got worse. Early in set 2, Alex dropped her own serve. Now she wasn't just down a set, she was behind on the scoreboard too, with the crowd fully behind the Olympic champion. One more hold from Zheng, and this match was essentially over. This is the exact scenario that used to swallow the old Alex Eala whole. A powerful opponent, confidence draining, pressure climbing by the minute. Most young players panic right here. They start swinging for miracle winners. They rush. They try to end points before they've earned the right to. Alex didn't do any of that. And that single decision changed the entire trajectory of the match. Instead of hunting for spectacular shots, she zeroed in on something almost boringly simple. Get one more ball back. Stretch the rally by one more shot. Make Zheng hit one extra ball she didn't want to hit. Again, and again, and again. Slowly, the rhythm of the match started to shift. Zheng's free points dried up. Her service games stretched longer. Every point demanded one more difficult decision than she wanted to make. That pressure, the same pressure that had been crushing Alex minutes earlier, started sliding back across the net. Alex broke serve immediately, refusing to let zheng settle into her lead. Suddenly the certainty that had filled the stadium moments before began to wobble. Then came the stretch that flipped the entire match on its head. Alex won 7 straight games against an Olympic champion. Sit with that for a second. Players at this level don't just fold, they adjust. They change serve patterns, attack new targets, hunt for a new plan. Zheng tried all of it. Nothing worked. Because by this point, it wasn't momentum anymore. It was control. Alex wasn't overpowering her. She was outthinking her, returning deeper, choosing safer margins, absorbing pace instead of fighting fire with fire, making every single rally just a little more uncomfortable than the last. Small decisions stacked on top of each other, turning into a massive shift. By the final set, this didn't even look like the same match anymore. Where she should have been fading physically, Alex looked fresher. Where frustration should have crept in, she looked calm. Where rushing would have been natural, she trusted the process instead. The deciding set wasn't close. She dominated it start to finish. What looked like a certain loss 30 minutes earlier turned into one of the best comeback wins of her entire season. And here's the part that matters most. She didn't suddenly discover a bigger serve. She didn't start hitting harder than an Olympic champion. She simply made better decisions, for longer than her opponent could handle. That's not talent. That's a skill. And it's the exact skill every real champion leans on, week after week. But the story wasn't finished yet. If beating an Olympic champion after dropping the first set sounds impressive on its own, what came next may top it. Because this time, it wasn't about surviving raw power. It was about surviving pressure, staying steady while the scoreboard screamed that the match was already gone. And those are the wins that quietly rewrite a career. Round 2. The defending champion waiting across the net less than 24 hours later was Leylah, former US Open finalist, the reigning Washington champion, and one of the toughest competitors currently on tour. Unlike Zheng, Fernandez doesn't rely purely on power. She builds pressure through movement, early ball striking, and relentless consistency. And she already had Alex's number. Earlier in the season, Fernandez had beaten her in straight sets. She knew Alex's tendencies. She knew exactly which rallies she wanted to create. For long stretches of this match, it looked like that history was about to repeat. The numbers backed that up. Fernandez piled up 25 winners. Alex had just 10. 15 fewer winners is usually a death sentence in tennis. The player generating more highlight shots usually controls the outcome. But Washington had other plans, again. Because while Fernandez was producing spectacular shots, she was also taking on far greater risk with every one of them. Alex clocked that early. Instead of trying to trade power for power, she stayed disciplined. She accepted the long rallies. She picked the safer target over the flashy one. She trusted steadiness over brilliance. Sometimes the smartest shot in tennis isn't the one that gets replayed on highlight reel. Alex understood that better than she ever had before. The first set showed it clearly. Fernandez attacked, Alex absorbed. Fernandez pushed the pace. Alex simply forced one more ball back. Errors crept into Fernandez's game, not from a collapse in confidence, but because Alex refused to hand her a single easy point. Set 1 went to Eala, 6-2. Not flashy, not spectacular, just smart, patient tennis. But anyone assuming the match was decided clearly hadn't accounted for a champion's response. The collapse that wasn't set 2 flipped completely. Fernandez raised her intensity, her ground strokes got heavier, her timing sharpened, and the pressure swung hard in her direction. Game after game, she pulled away. Then came the moment that could have broken almost any young player alive. 5-1, Fernandez's way. One single game from forcing a decider. The crowd could feel it. And remember, Alex had already spent nearly 2 exhausting hours battling an Olympic champion less than a day earlier. Fatigue should have been setting in. Doubt should have been creeping up. This is exactly where matches are usually lost mentally, long before they're lost on the scoreboard. But something about Alex looked different. No panic, no rushed shots, no desperate hero ball attempts. Instead, she slowed everything down to its simplest form. 1 point, 1 return, 1 rally, 1 game. She wasn't trying to erase a 4-game deficit in a single burst. She was only playing the next point in front of her. That's the exact mindset seasoned champions describe when asked how they turn matches around. And slowly, the comeback began. She held, then broke, held again, broke again. Bit by bit, the weight shifted back onto Fernandez's shoulders. The defending champion, who had just been 1 game from closing it out, suddenly looked unsure of what was happening to her own lead. Alex leveled the set, then went ahead. What had felt impossible minutes earlier now felt completely realistic. Fernandez found one final answer, holding serve to force a tiebreak. 7 points. Everything on the line. This was the real test of the tournament. 2 days of non-stop tennis. Physical exhaustion stacked on emotional pressure. A crowd fully engaged. And now, a tiebreak to decide the entire match. This is where champions separate themselves, not by suddenly playing flawless tennis, but by making fewer emotional mistakes than the player across the net. That's exactly what Alex did. She came out swinging in the breaker, jumped ahead early, and forced Fernandez into uncomfortable decisions under pressure. The unforced errors returned. The confidence shifted for good. Point by point, the finish line came into view. Then, with total composure, Alex closed it out with 2 clean forehand winners. Final tiebreak score, 7-1. Another top-tier opponent, defeated, 2 wins. One unmistakable pattern line these two results up side by side. Against Zheng, she lost the ace count by 10. Against Fernandez, she lost the winners count by 15. 2 completely different opponents. 2 completely different styles of pressure. Yet both matches ended exactly the same way, with Alex Eala's hand raise. That's not luck. That's not a lucky bounce or an off day for 2 opponents. That's growth. For years, the conversation around Alex Eala started and ended with talent. Washington introduced a new word into that conversation: reliable. And that single word changes everything. Because any player can produce one unforgettable performance. Very few can keep winning when the conditions turn ugly, when the serve isn't landing, when the opponent is hitting bigger, when the scoreboard says you should already be packing your bags. That's the difference between a player who occasionally pulls off an upset and a player who's becoming a genuine contender. Why this matters for the whole tour: here's the bigger picture. Women's tennis right now is as wide open as it's ever been. Big-name players lose to each other constantly. No single athlete owns every tournament anymore. That kind of parity creates room, and the players who can consistently grind out difficult wins are the ones who climb the rankings faster than anyone expects. Alex looks like she's stepping directly into that conversation. Not because she's suddenly the biggest hitter on tour. Not because she's out-acing anybody, but because she's learning the one thing that can't be taught overnight: how to find a second plan the moment the first one stops working. The question still left to answer, of course. One tournament doesn't hand anyone a top 10 ranking. It doesn't guarantee trophies either. There's still a milestone waiting for her. Alex has now beaten Grand Slam champion, Olympic champion, former top 10 players, and now, a defending tournament champion too. What she still hasn't done is lift a WTA Tour trophy. That's the next real test. Can she carry this same discipline into a final? Can she handle the weight of playing for a title, not just a round? Can she trust patience when the biggest moment of her career finally arrives? Nobody has those answers yet. But Washington changed the question being asked. It's no longer can Alex Eala pull off one incredible upset? She's already answered that, more than once. The real question now is simpler, and far more dangerous for everyone else on tour. Can she keep winning even on the days she isn't playing her best tennis? Because if the answer keeps being yes, every player left on the WTA Tour has a real problem on their hands. A player who only wins on her best day is exciting to watch. A player who wins on an ordinary day too. That's how champions get made. And maybe that's the real takeaway from Washington. It was never really about 14 aces, or 25 winners, or even beating 2 outstanding opponents back-to-back. It was about something far harder to put a number on: patience, sharp decisions, belief that holds steady even when the scoreboard is screaming otherwise. Alex Eala didn't win every statistic that week. She won every moment that actually mattered. And sometimes, that's exactly how the next great champion gets built. The story isn't finished, but after Washington, it sure feels like a brand new chapter just started.